Okay, I've just switched it over. Okay,
oh,
sorry,
yes.
I already went into the wrong TV studio, so we're a little bit late. Sorry,
my
about
fault
that.
entirely. I was on the wrong show. It was crazy. I walked right into ContraPoints. It was like, where am I?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Extra Mess, which I'm doing from my very dark room. I can't seem to get the light much better than this. But we thought we should do one because, what a morning! What a great morning! Stonewall. Yes. Oh my God! I mean, the first thing.
Stonewall is falling. The walls are coming down.
Yes. They very much are. I've got. We hopefully have Maya coming in to talk to us as well in a little bit about it. So yeah, I told her past. So hopefully she'll be around then. I don't know where to begin. It's so great.
It is. It's the most incredible thing, isn't it? That not only have as we said, like we saw Matthew Parris yesterday. Now he's a big name, like so openly gay man.
Stonewall founder.
Stonewall founder right. Saying that there's a big problem here, and you see, like, once people like that start indicating that maybe Stonewall isn't the side that you should be on, I can see that the dominoes, maybe the first one hasn't quite fallen yet, but it's beginning to wobble. And then today, the news that the EHRC has actually ended its membership of the Stonewall Diversity Champion Scheme, I think is really huge news.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can we just remind everyone what EHRC stands for?
Sure. I'll probably screw it up.
It's Equalities and Human Rights Commission. It's the UK's Equalities and Human Rights Commission. Yeah,
you can't do that to us. You can't give us a thing that we've been repeating all day as if we're knowledgeable. Yeah, and that's very kind of. I mean, in terms of the kind of what's the word? The imagery there, is that the word I'm looking for? Not imagery. The significance of that. I mean, you've got the equalities.
The optics, I think, is the word.
Yeah. I think it's a very symbolic moment because they're literally about equalities, and they've said no, we can't be associated with Stonewall.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
I mean, it's interesting that they were part of the scheme to begin with, given that they should be neutral and advocating for the human rights of all. Now, you can see why they would join, because it's Stonewall, right, who've had such a great track record up until now. What could be wrong with Stonewall? But as it turns out, quite a lot. Because as Matthew Parris sort of made the point, and I think it was reiterated in, who was it? Is it Mary Harrington, who wrote that Mail Online piece today?
Yeah.
That they are now a sort of an organisation without a cause, and they've got the setup, the money. I mean, we have talked about this in the past. They've got the setup, they've got the money, they've got jobs, there's careers on the line. They get $3 million a year from the Diversity Champion Scheme. They're not going to give that up lightly, are they? They're not going to say, okay, our work is done, disband, let's go off and do something else. Of course they're not going to.
Well, here's
the horse that they've backed isn't necessarily, I don't know, running properly, jumping the hurdles. I don't know.
Well, they changed their entire raison d'etre. I mean, the moment they started pushing trans women or women as a literal truth was the moment they betrayed gay people, betrayed lesbians, and we were saying this 3 or 4 years ago. Jonny Best, whose letter to Stonewall I signed. And Jonny was a student and had a complaint against him lodged because of that letter. I mean, a complaint against a student. It made a couple of years of his life a misery, and he ultimately won because, as we all know, Stonewall have been giving illegal advice to all these institutions when they challenge people like Jonny and us, So I'm hopeful. I mean, I'm hopeful as well as other organizations leaving. I'm hopeful that a few lawyers are starting to sniff the air.
Oh, there's money to be made for sure. They're going to be, yeah.
I hope so.
Yes, true.
But it's terrible. When Stonewall does all this stuff, these people suffer for years. It was 18 months since the case at the University of Essex with, oh my God, I forget both of their names.
Joe Phoenix.
And the other one, the human rights lawyer.
Rosa Friedman.
Rosa Friedman, of course. That's a year and a half just to say, oh gosh, you're right. What we did was bad. That I mean, it doesn't even matter that justice eventually prevailed because they had to suffer for a year and a half under this, and all of the, and same with Jonny West, 2 years. Yeah.
Yep. As we've said, this is exactly how silencing works, isn't it? It is that chilling effect. It's the point of it. The point of it is to pillory some people in order to warn the rest off.
And I'm sick to death of anyone saying that silencing isn't real and cancel culture isn't real. I just want to explode when I hear people say that.
I know.
So
even today, people are like, "Oh, look, people are saying that they're being silenced over talking about Stonewall. Yet here it is in a national newspaper." And I'm like, "It's been hard graft.
It's been 4 years
us getting this information in." But Stonewall's response today was incredible. Yeah. The most astonishing tweet I think I've ever seen from an organization. The idea that national newspapers doing their job and scrutinizing the accounts and the whatever they're doing. I can't remember the word. Anyway, so scrutinizing the accounts of a UK charity, a leading UK charity, is creepy. Now they've used that word, that it's creepy. And I think this is the most incredible word to use because, of course, it goes completely hand in hand with the silencing of women. I was called creepy so much on Twitter for simply talking about the safeguarding of women and girls. Why are you talking about genitals? Why are you looking at genitals? Oh, my God, you creepy pervert. But to see it, used against individuals is bad enough, but to see a leading UK charity use this as an attempt to prevent their activities and accounts being scrutinized by the public is incredible. And it's obviously not going to work. It's just going to make it worse.
That's I'm told by Rob Jessel. Well, I say I'm told. He tweeted it that he knows someone within Stonewall, or he knows someone who knows someone in Stonewall, and apparently it's chaos in there at the moment. And I think that's reflected by the tweet. You see, what they've done is they've made a huge mistake because that creepy tag, that's kind of a reflexive response. Because they use it because that has worked in the past, saying that people, who are worried about these issues are creepy, have a creepy fixation with trans women. That has been working. It's been working for about 3 or 4 years. It's used to make people like myself, and as you say, Helen, you look like there's some kind of, I don't know, perverted reason.
Yeah, of course. That's the point. I don't think it does actually work. No. I think it's quite clear that it doesn't work, but it will, but they will continue to try it anyway because it's a way of preventing not being able, so that they don't actually have to engage with it.
But can you imagine the hypocrisy of a gay rights and a sexual rights organization using accusations of pervertedness to silence people? Calling people the word pervert shouldn't exist in a gay rights organization, and it's the first thing they grab at,
it also shows just how immune they feel they still are.
Yes.
There's going to be something over the next few days. They're going to get someone like I'll tell you what you'll see. You'll see a petition signed by I don't know Stephen Fry and fucking the bloke who actor Tatchell, but also who's that Ian McKellen,
Fanshawe,
Cashman, and they'll all sign this thing. We, the undersigned, we stand with trans people, and blah 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 blah. And it won't actually address any of the issues. Here's one example of what Stonewall have done to the country. I don't know how to pronounce this. La Scapigliata, who's
delicious
a great
dessert or something.
Twitter, she's great. And she says today that Royal United Hospitals Bath NHS Trust alone spent 12,661 quid on Rainbow Proud badges, which were emailed to every staff member. And they spent 2,783 on rainbow lanyards. So, there's a lot of money that has actually been kind of going back and forth because of this association with Stonewall. And really, it's another sign of how they, their purpose just dropped away a few years ago. And now it's just kind of finding ways to keep paying their staff.
The diversity champion scheme is so lucrative for them. 3 million a year. And really? What did they say? 850 plus. Well, 849 plus now, I guess.
Well, it is brilliant. It's quite a racket. But the thing about the rainbow, I think back to in the around the year 2000, when I made a furtive attempt to go to university, I really loved seeing rainbow stickers in a door in an office, because that meant this is a safe space for me.
Yes.
We didn't even call them safe spaces then, but there was still that lingering fear from the 90s of homophobia. And to see a sticker there was such a weight off my shoulders to say, okay, this is a place where I don't have to front. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to be afraid that someone's going to be hostile. I don't have to worry that even if they're polite to me, underneath, they're thinking I'm, a F word. So that it just meant so much. But the point of these things is that they have to be voluntary. It has to be something you're choosing to do to show your solidarity for gays. And now they're being distributed from a corporate headquarters and mandated. And that means it's pointless. And that also means it seems really hostile, because it is a political thing, homosexuality. Yes. It's not,
But isn't that terrible that the thing that used to reassure you now does the exact opposite?
That's exactly right. I get really bothered by the rainbow now. And that's so upsetting, because what the hell,
Pronouns and rainbows now, makes me anxious in certain situations, because I think, there's going to be hostility towards me here if
anyone recognizes you.
Or if I say what I believe about changing rooms and spaces and prisons, etc. Sports.
Yeah. It's sorry, go ahead, Artie.
Oh, going back to what do you think Stonewall's going to do if they're going to try to have a petition to try to clean up their name or whatever? I wonder if it's a little late for Stephen Fry to get on board with that at this point. We'll see. I'd like to see Stephen Fry back away. I'd like to see Ian McKellen not jump in this time to the rescue.
Yeah.
That would be nice if those two would just kind of stay out of it. I know they're not going to jump in front of on the GC side of things, but if they would just not defend Stonewall this time, that would be nice.
Yeah, exactly.
That UK Hun tweet was this morning. I haven't seen any big names jump in to defend them yet. I mean, obviously there's still time, but nobody has come in immediately as a knee-jerk reaction. So, I mean, of course it's a Sunday, maybe people haven't noticed, but if they haven't immediately thought, totally, they are considering, I think. They still might, but Matthew Parris has said something now, and I do think that actually means quite a lot.
Yes. That's two Stonewall ex-members at least, or founders, who say the organization has lost its way.
I think I saw a tweet. I was out late with Benji last night, so I didn't really go.
Yay! How is Benji?
Benji's wonderful.
Oh,
she says hello. So I think I saw another founder of Stonewall tweeted in defense of Stonewall this morning, if I recall, or somebody who's been a supporter for a long time, perhaps, and maybe a founder. It was a woman who said she still backs them and doing great. But that just seemed like weird. Why are you to the point where you have to say Stonewall is good publicly? Shows that there's a problem in its, It's not like we're going around saying I don't know, UNICEF, you guys. UNICEF is still good.
That's true.
Yeah,
so that's something.
They're going to have to do the same with ACLU. They're going to have to do the same things. ACLU is actually a good organization. You're going to have to make that clear.
ACLU is gone in my books, please. But so something about Stonewall, the attitude within it now, the sort of queer blue hair nose ring brigade, they're almost trying to secede from functioning society and create an alternative world where they can accuse the media of being creepy and they can just lash out at everyone and break the rules and ignore the laws. They just don't seem to want to live in the real world anymore. I
I always had that theory that this is something that happened to the left when Brexit and Trump happened, which is they just created a kind of alternate world where their rules applied. And, you know, the best example of that was the hilarious Democratic Socialist Convention, which featured those lines, "Will everybody please stop using gendered language?"
Really is descending into chaos. I was watching, what is her name? Oh my God. Oh, Abigail Shrier, who did Irreversible Damage. She gave a speech at a very right-wing, very conservative university. And it was an interesting speech when she was talking about the book. But then there was a Q&A afterwards, and the audience were all just like, "Do you think it's Satan?" You know? Is Satan doing it?
Seriously,
the right.
That is so odd. Can I just say as an aside, because that is not something that would happen in the UK. I don't think. I mean, it's just the right wingers here. They're just sort of Tories and want to protect old money. Right. It's not about like believing in Satan.
But there was the point was like so in the Q&A she was talking about, she came as, you know, she's a conservative woman, someone I have a lot of respect for, although our political differences are pretty significant. But she was talking about how she sees things like critical race theory and gender identity ideology as the left seceding from society and trying to rip society apart because they want to sow chaos so that they can build it anew with like some new priorities. And I thought, come to think of it, I guess that's kind of obvious, but also, I think there's some truth to that. They just want to rip shit apart so they can rebuild it in some magical way. But that's what happens every time there's a crisis that comes from the left. That's what happened in East Germany. That's what happened in Cambodia. You know, these things obviously are much bigger scale, or China. But that's what happens. Ideologues decide they want to rip everything apart, and when they put it back together, it's horrible.
Yes, and it isn't a sustainable way to advance society.
No.
The absurd idea that everything that's gone before, we shouldn't learn from anything that's gone before. We shouldn't stand on the shoulders of the, you know, giants or whatever. We should disregard them. We should treat everything that's come before us, everybody who's made decisions, political decisions, as stupid and wrong, and tear it all down. It isn't mature, is it? It's clearly going to descend into chaos. But of course, that's the point. They want it to descend into chaos so that the power can be redistributed.
Yeah, chaos is a ladder, is the line from Game of Thrones that I always think of, you know.
That was Littlefinger, right?
Yeah. Chaos is a ladder. And it's how and you can see, for instance, in like two great examples recently, the guy who complained about ladies and gentlemen and the guy who says he's non-binary and wants to get his nails done from a Muslim woman who doesn't want to do it. Both of them, like the guy who wants to get his nails done, misgenders himself on his own LinkedIn account, right? And this is why while he's telling
butter gasp, you guys.
This is while he's telling people, like picking them up on when they use the word he and stuff. Excuse me, it's they, you know, like it is a control thing. It's a power thing. It is powerless people, you know, who realize, I think one thing that happens with this ideology is you first gain control over your friends, right? Suddenly your friends think that you're a member of a magical group that's just come out of nowhere, and you can kind of order them around. And then, you know, that you get a bit drunk on that, and then you start trying to order larger society around, you know? And that's what it is. The whole pronoun thing, it's control, it's power, it's powerless people who do not have political power. Labour are now how far behind the Tories? The Tories are fucking surging ahead in the UK. They don't have power. And the only place they do have power is in, you know, the left-wing worlds of publishing, fashion, theatre, newspapers, you know, all these kind of
hair dye manufacturers, nose ring, piercing salons. Yeah. They're the only places where, you know, when you're getting email signatures, when you're putting pronouns in your email signature, it's like you're kind of pretending that you're in this great place that everybody, you know, where everybody believes the same thing as you do. You don't, and we don't, and we never will. We'll never believe this, not just because it's irrational and silly, but because it's homophobic and misogynistic, and it doesn't help trans people, you know? Right. And the worst is they're not just pretending they live in that world. They're setting up places where you have to get in that world or get out. Workplaces where it's like you play along, you come into fantasy rainbow pronoun land, or you get the fuck out, you know? It's being enforced. It's this enforcement of it that seems so gross to me. Gay rights has to be voluntarily accepted, you know? It can't be shoved down people's throats. People have to understand it. I don't want to shove I look back at like the wedding cake thing from like 15-20 years ago, and I think maybe they had a point. I would never have said that then, but now I'm like, God. Well, I mean, a lot of people have been saying that. They remember when Will and Grace was revived. That was like the first episode. They were like, wow, the wedding cake thing 10 years on, I think the wedding cake makers had a point. You know?
I mean, it's an interesting question, and again, it's the same sort of thing that we have touched on again and again and again. This whole fight has made us go back and look at things that we may have unquestioned or sort of supported unquestioningly in the past. I'm now sort of looking back and thinking, well, actually, you know, maybe I can look at it from the other side a little bit better now. It's the one thing that I'm so grateful to this fight for is it's made me truly try and understand the argument of the other side in order to fully be able to try and refute it, which is not, I'm sure I said this last week, which is not something that the other side seems capable or care about doing.
No.
It's very much shut up, you transphobic bigots, silence them, as opposed to trying to stand and make a decent, sort of morally decent argument in reply.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing how more and more decent people are speaking up. J.K. Rowling, there's this guy Graham Linehan, you know, and people are just like, oh, he's my favorite television shows ever. He created them, but somehow he's just magically turned into a bad person because he said something I don't agree with. Instead of going, oh, I should listen. he's probably got something to say. They're just like, no. J.K. Rowling, my most beloved author of all time. Oh, now she's just a horrible person. Where's the?
But this is another thing that I'm really interested in asking Maya when she comes. I've just sent her the link, but
she's in the comments. I think she's
she should be here in a sec. Okay. But the thing I would like to find out, for instance, how many people have been fired for questioning TWAW, how many people have lost their jobs, or how many people have lost financial opportunities, and is there a class action suit to be taken against Stonewall? Could you get like anyone who's in the diversity scheme, right? Here's a great example: Marion, the woman who was who's been told by the police to turn up because of her tweets.
Yes, and that social services will turn up for her children, which I think is almost more egregious. Yes. The threat of the clear threat of we will take your children away.
We're coming for your children.
Is absolutely fucking disgusting.
Yes, and that policewoman feels empowered to do that because Stonewall has been behind them all the way, and I guarantee you that the police force she's with is a member of the Stonewall.
You mean possibly Kirkcaldy police station?
Yes,
who tweeted on the weekend. Did you see this, Artie? That they warned everyone that there were some dangerous stickers.
Oh yes.
About that they should be reported so that they would get the council to come and remove them before anyone got to actually see them. Somebody did post an example that they said this is the sticker, and I can't I can't do the Scottish accent, and I even had to look up the word, which is women won't wished, and wished is
Scottish.
Be quiet. Be quiet. And this was the tweet. This was the sticker. This was the dangerous sticker that Kirkcaldy Police Station were telling everyone to report because they would come and remove them, and that they should beware. Beware.
Yeah.
In the year 2021, this is joke. Hey, before we bring in Maya, can I just read you guys something really, really quick, hot off the presses?
Sure. Maya's here, so I can bring her in. I'll bring you in just after this, Maya. Go ahead, Artie.
Oh yeah, so Julie Bindel is suing Pink News for libel. Did you guys hear about this?
Yeah, I saw a thing, but then I saw the story had gone, and I didn't know what was happening.
It just went live. I think they're just editing it. It just went up like 1 minute ago on Lesbian and Gay News.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I'll just read you really quickly.
Wonderful news. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's a libel claim over an article carried by the online journal on the 17th of May. The article in question was an interview piece. I'll just read you this paragraph because it's wild. I never read the piece itself, but it was an interview piece with Amy Dias. So already. Framed as the story of a woman escaping from the gender-critical cult. In the piece, extremely serious criminal allegations of sexual abuse, offers to find Dias a wife in order to keep her in the UK, and allegations that cult members coerced and controlled Dias were made. The article does not name Bindle, but she argues a combination of everything in the campaign against her and the information widely publicly available on Mrs. Dias's Twitter feed. It identify Bindle essentially. So can you imagine Pink News would be so brash as to just think they could just go ahead and accuse someone of being a cult leader? Like what?
I did read it, and I did know that it was Julie Bindle. It was everywhere. So I think she's right to sue Pink News. I don't think that they can claim that because they didn't name her, it's okay, because everyone knows, because they said it's Amy Dias. It was on her feed. I knew it was Julie Bindle. So
well, you know,
must know it too. So I really hope that she does sue them, and I obviously hope that she wins.
So that's Joanna Cherry, who won against them. They had to delete a piece about.
Right. Can I just say, it was the International Cabal of Powerful Lesbians.
That's right. Yes.
That was it.
But they had to delete a piece about me where they accused me of supporting conversion therapy. So they had to delete that. So this will be the third big thing. But listen, anyway, let's bring in Maya.
They also deleted that tweet when they accused me. They tried to edit my words to make me sound like a pedophile. I think it was Benjamin Cohen who did that. From our show, yeah. But that was on Twitter.
All right, here is Maya. Hello, Maya. Well done. Hi. Well done, you.
Hi, I have Maya, and I've switched from breakfast to lunch.
I had breakfast for lunch, so I'm not quite there yet.
Maya, what a fantastic job you've done. This is absolutely brilliant news.
Hats off to you, Maya.
Can you tell us how you found out, and can you give us a little bit of background?
Sure. I mean, we got this news in a letter from Baroness Faulkner, but I don't think it was down to sex matters. I think this has been a long time coming, and the fact that the EHRC was so late in intervening in my case, I think probably reflects all kinds of internal discussions that have been going on. But the Don't Submit to Stonewall FOI campaign, it had got.
Oh yes, that was Legal Feminists campaign.
Yes, started by Legal Feminist by Naomi Cunningham, who's also on the board of Sex Matters. So Sex Matters is a sort of Legal Feminist Sex Matters collaboration in terms of using that data. And that had already got out some stuff on the conversation between EHRC and Stonewall, correspondence between them over the last couple of years. And you could see that Stonewall was sending reminders for a bill, and it seemed not to be getting paid. So we thought that was interesting. And we haven't the other side of that correspondence yet, because the way that the FOIA request was worded, it only got out the Stonewall to EHRC side of the correspondence, but somebody has put in a request for the other side of that correspondence, so we may eventually get it. But you could see that there was something going on, and we, could sort of sense that there were questioning of whether it was a wise thing for EHRC to be in the Stonewall champions. And then obviously they intervened in my case, which Stonewall had applied to intervene on the other side, and had not been given permission to intervene. So, it would have been quite embarrassing, I think, for EHRC if they'd been intervening on the other side of a case with diversity champions that they are a member of. And so, we thought we would encourage them along the road to thinking about whether they should really be a member of this thing. So we wrote this open letter and got a really good group of people sign it. And I mean, it turns out we can't claim credit because, as she said in her letter, they actually dropped Stonewall in March, so that was before our letter. But you know, I kind of think it's like the little red hens. You know, we talk about you know, the Emperor's New Clothes, and there's all kinds of fairy tales that help us make sense of this. But the one I keep thinking about is the little red hens who did all the work. And this weekend feels like one for a lot of little red hens.
Well, you know,
yes.
we were saying this just the other day on the show, is just, I hope people know just how much hard work went into all this and how much fighting behind the scenes. You know, like it was 4 years ago, I think, that Jonny Best wrote his letter to his open letter to Stonewall, where we simply asked, can we have a discussion about these things in a grown-up way? And they said no. They just said no. So that's like, and then Jonny was investigated by his university. All sorts of people, and this is something I'd love to ask you about, Maya. All sorts of people have had their lives, if not ruined, at least major inconveniences. People have lost financial opportunities and so on.
And the stress, the emotional stress, the emotional labor, but the stress of it all is just the collective stress. It's extreme.
Absolutely. I mean, I hear from people all the time who are having this problem at work, and you know, there are people who get as far as complaints. You know, there are people who will come to court. There are people who will come to court after me. But then there are so many other people who are, you know, forced into making a complaint or, I mean, making an apology. You know, stress of that in your workplace is awful for people. And you know, Jonny was vindicated in the end, and he got an apology. But you know, he said the process is the punishment that he went through with his university, and that, you know, I mean, I know of dozens of cases, and I think there are hundreds, if not thousands.
Wait, there's already cases in progress about people who've been, say, expelled or whatever from universities and stuff like that. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, sort of cases, as in not necessarily legal cases, but just that.
I see.
Told me about what's happening to them, but there will be other cases that come up behind, and you know, and there have been ones that I think have been settled. You know, you don't always hear about them, and I think also people can now start to use, you know, they can use the Essex report, they can use Jonny's complaint, they can use the EHRC intervention in my case. You know, they can use all these things and show them to their HR and kind of try and stop this escalating when they get a complaint.
It feels at this point that HR departments everywhere are really going to be in for a fright. It's not going to be a slam dunk of just canceling someone or letting someone go anymore. There's just so much mounting evidence that it's just not, you know, out of the gate.
And I can speak personally of this, even just being told that you're under investigation, even though by the end everyone's like, no, it's all good, it's all fine, but the stress of it for those months is still there. You know, you're just sort of constantly sort of slightly stressed about, you know, what's going to happen. It's it is a really powerful tool that transact have been using.
Yeah, nobody wants to be, even if you're in the right legally, you don't want to be in any kind of conflict with your employer. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you're in an awkward, you know, you have some political belief that is somehow so toxic that you have to be investigated at all. You know, most people just want to be like smooth sailing, get along with everybody. Don't ruffle any feathers, you know, don't make any waves. I mean, it's just awful. But if it hasn't been for all of these cases like yours, Maya, and everyone else's, we wouldn't have at least that. We have this great bedrock now of like, you know.
We do. I think I said last week that particular line from the Joe Phoenix case, which was, this is indirect sex discrimination, I think is a really powerful one. And I do believe that people should be using this all of the time. Like should be, you know, because it is mainly women, and women should say up front, this is indirect sex discrimination.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, you know, also just being able to show that HR departments that they can answer this, because I think what happens is they get this complaint that something is transphobic, and they don't understand it, and they don't want to say, well, that's not transphobic. They, the definition of transphobia that like Transactual and the Lib Dems are using says that even trying to define something as not transphobic is transphobic. So, nobody, and it goes up and up to the levels of the organization. And unless somebody's willing to say, stop the madness, somebody's upset, but it's not, we don't need to cause a, 3-alarm fire, it can escalate. And I think, all of these cases and complaints that have been resolved can help people to de-escalate. And I was just going to say one thing. Sex Matters has been setting up. We finally got LinkedIn, which we hadn't done yet, and quite a few HR people have been friending me and messaging me, and because I think there are HR people who they want to stop the madness. So and
that's great.
Having people talk about this on LinkedIn is a whole nother.
LinkedIn is completely public. That is your public record of employment. I'm scared to go near LinkedIn, because if I get fired from someplace, I don't want it. You can't take it off, But so that's extraordinary. And it's amazing how HR departments are the center of this battle in so many ways. Something as obscure as HR really makes all the difference. So that's amazing.
But it's interesting that it's been taken out of Twitter there and into HR. This is serious. It can affect people's livelihoods, as you say. And I'm really happy that they're actually looking at both sides and they're thinking, hang on, we need to find out what's actually going on here. We're not going to just sort of say, knee-jerk reaction. Okay, if you say it's transphobic, it is. I think it's extraordinarily important. I'm so happy about that, Mayor.
And I thought it was interesting that after the Essex University report, they then put out this kind of mealy mouth thing that said, if anyone's been affected by the instance of this week, blah blah blah. But what they offered them was sort of online counselling, CBT. You could call up and if you're concerned, somebody will talk to you. I think, well, that's okay. That's what you should offer if people are upset.
And that's what you need. If you can't cope with a realistic adult decision that came down, you need some therapy. We'll give you some,
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was quite good that's what they put up as a response. So they weren't just saying, no, go away, we're not going to listen to you. They were just saying, you're upset, we can help you.
Well, all joking aside, once we deal with the horrible advice that Stonewall have been giving everybody, we need to move on to the fact that a lot of young people seem to be so fragile that they are going to have real trouble navigating the world. This is something that beyond gender critical activism, there's something behind it, something behind it as well, which is, I always think it's the internet. It's just growing up with the internet, growing up in very, very almost overprotective environments. I just think that these kids are very vulnerable, and if you tell them that this will cause you pain or make you want to commit suicide, then that will be true. That will become, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Maya, can I just ask, what are the chances, do you think, of some sort of class action suit being brought against Stonewall or the police or any of the members of the diversity scheme? What do you think that's going to happen?
I'm not a lawyer. I just know too many lawyers now. I don't, from what I understand, I don't think, it's not collective responsibility, it's individual responsibility of employers. But I think the big thing that will happen now is that employers will start to look at their Stonewall membership as a risk. And they haven't done that before. It's been signed off by somebody in the, LGBT allies group, or it's been signed off because everyone else is doing it. And it's got a kind of, nobody gets fired for buying IBM kind of thing about it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's sort of having a
Sorry, I don't understand that reference. What does that mean? Nobody gets fired for?
Helen will explain it.
Well, it's just the sort of standard go-to. It's like IBM. Everyone else is doing it. Everyone else is buying this project. It's fine. It's Stonewall, right? It's got the name. Like, nobody's going to get fired for signing up to Stonewall, of course.
Right.
And
I guess it's also a very quick way of showing that you're on the side of the angels by associating yourself with Stonewall.
Right. And I think now they're going to see that it's a risk, and is it a risk that's worth taking? I think
exactly what you were saying earlier.
But isn't it a risk because people will take out legal action? Sorry, Helen.
Yes.
Well, no, I mean there's also
individual employers. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, but it's possible reputational risk now, isn't it?
Right.
Because they say that exactly as we were saying earlier, when somebody like Matthew Parris, who is a sort of influential gay man, writes an article saying, actually, maybe Stonewall aren't right here, people are going to start thinking, well, maybe it's not somebody we want to associate with. In exactly the same way that happened to J.K. Rowling, people are like, oh, I don't really understand the argument, but maybe I don't want to be associated with her anymore. This is possibly going to happen now to Stonewall. The more and more people who say, oh, no, then people will be like, oh yeah, no, actually, I've heard things. Maybe we shouldn't. Let's just sort of take a step back.
Yeah. That's reputation management, fear of being tainted by somebody who's been tainted. Everyone's just so afraid. And it's like that was terrible in Rowling's case, but at least in this case, it's working to our advantage. That Stonewall is now.
That's why I kind of don't trust it in a weird way. I think obviously that's a good result if people start thinking about this a little bit more. But I would love to see. I don't know. I mean, there's so many victims of this. I think people like Andy Healy of the Green Party, who is owed an apology, and I just said her name, the Scottish woman who's just been cautioned by the police. Marion, yes. There's so many hidden victims, and they've been put through hell. And I would include myself in this, I was absolutely battered by this debate, and I don't know. I would like to see
I think you'd like more than just a sort of like reputational thing. You would like an actual. Let's take them to court and let's say this is exactly what's happened, what they've done wrong, and you want some sort of actual holding up of this is the problem.
Yeah, there needs to be accounting and atonement. Yeah,
accountability
and atonement. And I think that a lot of the people who innocently kind of went along, you can kind of see past that, But the people who really jumped in with both feet, like Owen Jones and all the people who accused women of being bigots for standing up for their rights. I want to make sure that everything they say from now on is seen through that lens, that they were completely cripplingly wrong on this matter, there are no higher stakes, right? Because a very important part of this whole debate is the effect on children, and for these people to try and cast the women who've been trying to protect children as bigots, I want to see some accountability. I really do.
And you know what? This is an interesting thing, because in the past, when people had political views that did not hold up to like I just think of in the 60s and 70s, the United States, interracial marriage was very unpopular to the mainstream. It was something like 80% of Americans polled didn't agree with it. That's a terrible, abhorrent opinion. And then Loving v. Virginia happened. It was legalized across the United States. And all those people who held those negative opinions, they very quickly shifted into having positive opinions about interracial marriage. But they were able to just slough off their previous attitudes because they weren't all over the internet. They weren't published and logged and recorded. So you could just forget. It would just slide through time. Oh, remember when Dad used to be, totally racist? Yeah. But you can't do that anymore because there's a record. Everything is online. It's a lot. I mean, we're learning that's not entirely true. You can just delete your Twitter. But at least there's some, Owen Jones can't just pretend he was for women's rights all along. So it's going to be really interesting. We can't just quietly let people change their opinions. We have to look at how they changed their opinions and really force people to talk about it.
The prize, though, is the institutions. individuals will either save their reputation or kind of quietly reinvent themselves or go off and be cheese farmers or whatever. And,
I agree.
The kind of fate of Owen Jones doesn't bother me quite so much as what happens to these institutions. And I think with Stonewall, I think there'll be three kinds of accountability. There's this reputation thing. There are individual cases, and they will be enough of them, but they're painful for the people who do them, but they make an impact. And then I think thirdly is the public sector accountability. That what the organizations they've captured have been public organizations that have an accountability to us through the democratic system, which is worthy of respect and all that. And so you see it like with these FOIA requests, these Freedom of Information requests, where Nancy Kelly of Stonewall was going, we've had to spend all this time, dealing with FOIA requests, and it's like, well, they're not for you, they're for the public institutions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not the public institutions do get to ask the person on the other side for their input to the decision, but it's not to protect Stonewall. And so, so the thing that we're pushing now is the Nolan principles, the standards of public life, which are anti-corruption principles across all, national government, local government, NHS, the whole works, that we think being aligned to Stonewall is not compatible with the Nolan principles. And so that's kind of a collective way of getting at this. If we can get a public inquiry or just a recognition that this is not compatible with running a public service, then I think that's one way that we can do this sort of collective accountability where it matters. And that's where it matters eventually more than Owen Jones, however much he might annoy you.
But I want revenge.
I'm only using him as a kind of a catch-all. There's a huge group of people who joined in with the abuse and harassment that people like ourselves were
absolutely. He has been quite influential, hasn't he? That have been men like Owen Jones have been influential in sort of turning public opinion against women and some men, like you. But I think in the end, I do agree that institutions matter a lot more in terms of changing everything. But by doing that, these people will be left sort of, as you say, either saying, okay, I was wrong, that's not going to happen, or pretending that maybe they were sort of not as vehement as they were, or as you say, brilliantly becoming cheese farmers.
Yeah, it's amazing. Look at Peter Tatchell seems to be already looking for an exit, looking for a way to spin. He's always spinning his way out of his messes, always on the wrong side of history and always trying to get himself out of it and escaping with his tail. So I'd like to cut that one off. But also, it's amazing the human stories that are going to be going on in the HR departments everywhere. Because there are going to be these people, the Chase Strangios and all these organizations who are going to be throwing tantrums, who are going to be wailing that they're dying because policies are changing, So there's going to be so much internal struggle and strife. The policies are going to change, the organizations are going to change, but within them, there's going to be some extremely interesting human drama going on, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I think we're going to see all sorts of things. Apparently the tweet that Stonewall said today, the "You OK Hunt" tweet, it comes out of the absolute chaos in there at the moment, which I'm delighted to hear, because they should be panicking. Let's ask, is there a way back for Stonewall, Maya, do you think? That says everything.
It is. Well, it is an interesting question, and actually, I hadn't considered that that "Are you okay?" "You okay, hun?" and the creepiness thing has actually come out of the fact that there is chaos, as opposed to
just their usual thing.
Well, yes, and actually, when you say that, it makes a lot more sense that somebody has just seen it, picked up the social media. Nobody's necessarily in charge. People don't really know what the collective message is at this point. That is obviously how it is. I think it's an interesting question. Is there a way back?
No, because the answer is the LGBT Alliance showed us what the future is. It's the LGBT Alliance. This is an organization that is absolutely principled, that is doing everything right, that has got all their, they're just positioned so well. They're doing such an extraordinary job. I think the future of Stonewall is to just hand the keys over to Bev and Kate. Here you go. We fucked up. We're gonna go cheese farm. You do your thing.
Maya, you've instituted a new
a new
saying now. Yeah, new meme. The cheese farmer.
Yeah.
We'll be dining out on this.
There was something else.
Stonewall didn't exist, I don't think we would. I don't think we would suffer. I mean, I think other organizations would fill the gap where Stonewall is doing useful stuff for, gay and lesbian rights. I don't think there's anything that can't be replaced with Stonewall. That I'm sort of more concerned about, like the CQC, the Care Quality Commission, that is supposed to safeguard people in hospitals and care settings. Can we do without that? No. And so, if Stonewall doesn't survive this, then,
I think you're right.
Other pieces.
Yeah.
But there are other organizations where we really need to kind of build golden bridges and help them back to sanity, I think.
What can people say, for instance, to people in the comments now and others? What can they do to help things along? I mean, is now the time to write to your school and say, are you using Stonewall approved materials? Do we write to police, our local police stations? What's a good way to compound the victory that we've had today?
I think writing to your local school is a really good one, because they are making decisions, particularly if they're academies, or they've had this level of devolution where they're not, previously they would have taken their policy from the local education authority, but they at school, individual schools are adopting policies, and so that means parents and local people can have an influence at that level. So I think writing to your head teacher and governors, we should be doing that now. I think people in work should be, still being cautious, but slightly less cautious in, talking to their HR department and their risk department about these policies. And then, we're going to write to all of the Stonewall champions to let them know about this,
I think
right.
Report. That's an excellent idea. I think that everyone should write to Stonewall Diversity Champions, especially if you've got a stake on it.
If you're
working for there, or if you're in that university.
As a customer, as an employee, as they're a big part of your local community. If they're NHS trusts, the ones that you have a legitimate stake in, and they can't just throw your letter in the bin.
Well, it makes such a difference.
And I know they've hidden their list. Yeah. But I know that somebody has an archive of it, which I think we can post the link.
You should have seen it by following my blog. I put it on my blog the other day, but never mind.
But I used to be a manager of an organization that instituted gender-neutral washrooms about 6 or 7 years ago, and I was a little uneasy about it. But when letters came in from feminists criticizing this, it made such a difference. Even though this was early on, I didn't even respond to these letters, but it meant so much to know that people are speaking up. It meant so much to hear a direct contact from someone saying, I don't like this. This is a threat to my rights. This is not cool. I don't appreciate this. And I want you to know that. And I'd like you to, to address it. It made a huge difference. When people need to know that our opinions are out there. So any letter writing, anyone who reads it, they are absolutely taking it to heart, even if they don't respond.
And may I add to that, I got a tip from Baroness Nicholson, the wonderful Baroness Nicholson, who said, and remind me to tell you an amazing story I heard about Baroness Nicholson. But she said that whenever you write one of these letters, write to someone else to say you've written. Like, for instance, if you write If you write to your local police station, write to your local newspaper to say that you've written to your local police station. Or if you write to your MP, write to your local newspaper to say you've written to your MP. The thing that apparently helps you get responses and gets them to take it seriously is if you just make it public that you've written to them. So,
that's so true.
Yeah, do it on Twitter, do it however you can, but do it, you know. The story I heard about Baroness Nicholson was her phoning up the Iraq embassy or the UK embassy in Iraq, shouting down the phone, open the borders. And they apparently opened the borders, however that works. And she drove through with 2 kids she'd rescued from some kind of camp or something like that. Baroness Nicholson. She would never tell you herself, but she is an absolute heroine. She's done some incredible things for kids, and she's the one who made me think, oh, right, I need to stop being so horrible about people who have conservative views, because she's a hero, you know. Yeah, but anyway, sorry, that's by the by. Listen, Maya, I want to talk a little bit about what I think is the hidden scandal, and I really wish I'd put it earlier on in the show, because I think it's so important. It's possibly one of the most important aspects of this, but it might not be your area. You might not want to join in with this, but it's Amy Challoner. Do you want to stick around for this, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have, you know, Amy Challoner was the thing which really started me tweeting about this was when The Guardian didn't report on Amy Challoner. That was what kind of made me think I need to speak on this. And,
well, then you should stay.
And the other interest I have in Amy Challoner is that the Scouts, promoted. Yes. You know, I was a Scout, and the Scouts promoted Amy, who was clearly a child with
issues,
family issues, you know, all kinds of issues. And there is still a blog post on the Scouts LGBTQI plus bit of their website, which is a blog post by Amy saying how Amy was a helper with a group of younger Scouts, and a young Scout said, "Are you a girl?" And Amy said, "Yes, I am." And it was all about respect, you know, and Amy says, well, they showed me respect that older people haven't done. And there was, you know, there was no question in there about what does it mean for a teenage, you know, a male teenager to tell a young girl that they're female, and it's still sitting there on the website. You know,
that's amazing that it's still there.
Well, let's
they've treated me. So yeah, I have Amy interest.
Well, let's I always, this is the way I would phrase it to a journalist. I do not understand why it is not a bigger scandal that someone who is, let's say, pedophile adjacent, in the sense that they're married to a self-confessed pedophile and appear to be living in a kind of three-way relationship with another pedophile. This is a person who is at the heart of Stonewall, when Stonewall were influencing institutions all over the UK to degrade safeguarding, as well as other things, right? Why is that not the biggest scandal since Savile? It is huge. If like, this is a person who has been, you know, put in so many situations with children, right? And they have absolutely an interest in, or at least their lovers or whatever have absolutely an sexual interest in children, right? How much of Stonewall's policies about trans identification and trans rights were influenced by Amy Challoner, right? We need to know that, and we need to know, you know, are these institutions that have been part of the schemes, are they aware? Are they even aware of the Amy Challoner influence?
But maybe now is the time to re-raise it, now that Stonewall is in the news. It's just like Savile. It took a long, long time for people to finally sit up and take notice. But now Stonewall's in the news. Maybe it's worth it. Maybe it will be picked up. Maybe this
is so unpalatable. People are afraid. People are willing to say, okay, Stonewall's a little bit bad, but to go from 0 to 60 to like, oh my God, there's a pedophile ring right infiltrated it. That's just so frightening for people. I think that even though it's true, they don't want to see it yet. You know, they don't want to quite go there. People need to take their baby steps. But now is a good time, because right now, you know, the chaos ladder, this is a good time to point out to people that Stonewall isn't just a little bit of a mess. It's a really big mess.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned the Scouts and Girl Guiding. You know, we pointed out the other day when we had, what's her name again?
Katie.
We had Katie. Yeah, Katie was on, and we pointed out that that the rules that Girl Guiding have for safeguarding are extremely strong when it comes to men, right up until the moment they self-identify as women, and then those rules disappear. That is insane when you think about it.
No, if I picture like one of those big safe doors with a big wheel, and it's like this big iron door, and then right next to it, there's like this lovely garden trellis that you can walk through, you know?
Exactly. You know?
And I think, you know, in the end, it's not necessarily about Amy Challoner. It's about, you know, that if you build that system, they will come. That, you know, if you make a loophole in safeguarding, it will attract people who will exploit it, and there will be, you know, many of them.
Yes, it's the sacred caste. You know, I heard someone say that you cannot make sacred castes. It is rule 1 on safeguarding, and priests were a sacred caste. For years and years, the same discomfort and unease that people felt about exposing it, that you just spoke about in relation to Amy, Artie, was there with Catholics and the priests. It was embarrassing. They didn't want to face it, you know. But as soon as you know, victims started coming forward, other victims started coming forward, you know. Mm-hmm. So I guess something similar will happen here. It
took a long time, though. I mean, it was an open secret for, you know, decades.
Yeah,
that's what happens with a sacred caste. That's what, and as we've often, you know, another thing that cleverer people than me have said is that the problem is not that trans people are predators. The problem is that predators will pretend to be trans, you know.
Right.
And look at how many pedophiles have called themselves trans in trials and are getting, and it's working. They're getting lighter sentences, and sometimes they're being let off. You know, it's just astonishing what the sacred caste will do for you. You know, it's and I think that one of the brilliant things about this is that it might chip away at that. I'd like to.
Yes.
I'm hoping that attention does.
I think there's no question that there's a tiny chip happened today again. Clearly, it has, because we've seen the sort of extraordinary response of Stonewall. This is not a professional, well-considered response at all. It's a panicked response of an organization that is clearly in chaos.
Yeah. I think this sacred casting is interesting here because the left is starting to see that they can't take their own side for granted. It's that they can see clearly that the sacred cast happened to conservatives or to traditional religious people, and they can say that's them. We're smarter than them. We're the intellectual lefties. But they have to really start they have to start comparing their viewpoints and their sort of tribalistic tendencies to what's going on in other parts of the political spectrum. You know, the left can be just as susceptible to sacred caste as the right. Atheists can be just as susceptible to sacred caste as religious people. They really have to start looking at themselves and giving themselves some perspective. And I think that's happening here. I think no one would have guessed that gay rights would turn into this fascist, horrible,
No.
But it can happen anywhere. You know? Yeah.
The vulnerabilities, there will be something else with a different kind of flag and it'll look different, but it's the same. I mean,
it always looks different, but it's always kind of the same in some way.
Well, you know, I worry because Rotherham is a very similar thing that happened. You know, people were unwilling to look at the abuse that happened in Rotherham because they were worried about being racist in the same way that people are now worried about being transphobic. You know, and I worry that people just keep having to learn the same lessons over and over again. You know, it's depressing, really. And the interesting thing about this is, and I hope that we kind of can switch the conversation to talk about this a little bit, is that, you know, we had the Paedophile Information Exchange in the 70s, which got much further than they should have got, because I don't know about you, but there was something about that title I didn't like. but they got really far, right? They got really far, and they were supported by Harriet Harman and people like this, people in the Labour Party, you know, and I think that what this is it's a second push by these kind of sexual rights activists, along the same lines as PIE, but they had Twitter, they had social media, they had Tumblr to kind of come up with this nonsense. They had crazy academics in East Coast American colleges to come up with these bullshit phrases that they were all able to repeat and make themselves sound clever. And I think that we are going to have to look at the internet as a whole, in the same way I was talking about, you know, these kids who are over fragile. You know, we're going to have to look at the internet. We're going to have to say, what happened here, and how can we make sure it never happens again? You know, like I have friends and family now who don't talk to me because they think I'm a bigot. You know, like we need to make sure that we're forearmed against this kind of thing that the internet can do.
The internet is such a powerful force, and we're not really like, there should be education in schools. It should be like a core curriculum thing, how to handle information processing and critical thinking in the age of the internet. It has completely transformed the human experience, and we're just muddling through it, and we're being taken advantage of by corporations. We're being manipulated. We really need a systematic core, as a human being in the future, living in technology in the information age. We need to be armed with how to deal with this. And this has to be like literally starting in elementary school, teaching kids what the internet is, what its powers are, and what its dangers are. I know that sounds great.
We'll be able to point to this time, and we'll be able to say people believed that men were women. People believed that men who dressed in women's clothes were women, you know?
Yeah. I think the thing with the internet is it's not just the internet that we use, and, you know, misinformation and bullying and Twitter and all of the surface stuff. The thing about the internet is it's changed the economics of all of the old industries and old careers, and it's the disruption of that I think has also made these institutions so vulnerable, because you know, you have these people who have the well-paid jobs, and then you have hundreds of people who could do the job just as well in the gig economy, who are earning much less, and, you know, who are never going to get those well-paid jobs because those kinds of career jobs are not going to exist anymore. You have this disruption that's been caused by the internet, and that, you know, that disruption and that what that does to organizations, I think, is also part of what's happening. So it's not just the sort of day-to-day internet, but it's also, you know, and this happened, you know, with the printing press, it happened with written language. You know, any time that you democratize and make much cheaper information, it changes everything. And there are winners and losers, and there are people grappling for power, and there are people willing to exploit it for sexual means, because there are always people willing to exploit it for sexual means. And, you know, and I think we can learn, but that's going to happen again, and it's going to keep happening because we're the same old human beings. But, you know, we can maybe get smarter at it. So yeah, I mean, I think it's more than just sort of internet education, which is the one level of why this has made such a difference.
I don't think it is going to happen again, though, because I think this time we're at risk of literally blowing the whole civilization up.
Yeah,
this is going to be the last one.
It does feel like end times sometimes when you see things like, I posted something the other day, the Packers for little kids. This is parents who are giving their kids little penis, their young girls are giving little penises they can stick down their pants because they think they're trans, you know, stuff like this.
I never thought I would live to see this, to be honest. I never thought that this would occur in my lifetime.
No, I know.
We didn't see this coming.
No, I really didn't.
It's basically the internet just kind of came to life and is now in everyone's kind of heads in a weird way. It's like a cross infection, you know. So, you know, you've got like all these things in the bloodstream that are like poisons, and they infect everybody. You know, Trump was a good example, you know, and this ideology is another good example. I'll give best example I can give. It's poisoned the world's nervous system to such an extent that Ipso are calling pedophiles she in their thing. And that's like one of the, for me, that's extraordinary, because like it degrades trust in the media completely. If you look at a photograph of a man and they're saying she did this and she did that all throughout, and it's a bloody sex offender at that, then how are you supposed to believe anything anyone says? And it leaves the door wide open to people like Trump, who could justifiably say they're lying to us. You know, it's really dangerous.
Yes,
you know?
Absolutely, it is dangerous.
It needs to be taken hold of before anything else. I think the first thing, you know, if anyone's thinking of writing letters, please write to Ipso as well and tell them, you know, and sign our. Actually, we'll put this in the YouTube comments. Sign our petition where we're asking people to accurately record the sex offenders.
Ipso is the International Press Standards Organization. I think they're the people who
independent.
Sorry.
UK, right. And it only regulates some newspapers who are
right.
Yeah, you can actually you
media.
can identify out of it. You don't have to actually be. Listen, we've got over an hour, so maybe we should wrap it up, even though this has been a very enjoyable. I did actually have some popcorn to eat during this, but I took it out too early and I finished it before we began.
Because I was late. I was hanging with Contra for 5 minutes.
But listen, Maya, I know there were a lot of hands involved in this wonderful day, but congratulations to the effect that you've had. I don't think you could say
Thank you.
Sex matters.
I thought it was really interesting. They said, you know, this coordinated attack on Stonewall. And I don't think there was coordinated. There's just a lot of stuff that's come to a head, and it all happened this weekend.
And there's a lot of people who, you know, a lot of gay people who are, you know, they're fed up with it. They're fed up with it.
And there's a lot of women who have been working for years behind the scenes, raising awareness, slog, emotional labor, money. Bloody hell, man.
Yeah. I'm getting nervous because what is this, like the 4th episode of The Mess we're in a row where it's just celebrating something? Like, what's going on?
Wait a second. We've still got. Is someone joking here? Someone just said bye, bigots. Here, look at this. I don't know if that's serious or not.
No, I'm sure that's playful. I think.
Well, we said hello, bigots as well, but I suspect it's playful.
Oh no, I've lost the one that says yes, Maya, so I can't get rid of it. Oh, there we go. There we go. All right, listen, guys. Thank you for joining us for this impromptu one. Maya, what a joy to speak to you on a great day.
So happy that you joined us again.
Yeah,
so I know it's 3rd time. I feel like
you're part of the gang
now.
And if there's anything that you need to tell us about or anything like that, please come and join us again.
Will do. And people sign the letter because we're going to send it soon. It's got 6,400 odd signatures on it now. Like a very long piece of paper, so get your name on it.
Can you, if you send me the link, we'll put it in the things. Brilliant. All right, Maya, lovely to talk to you. I'll see you soon. Bye. Right. Okay. I think that's a good old episode. We covered, I think, everything we had to. Anything left to say before we go? No?
Let's say hi to the folks in the audience again. Extra messages are so fun. I've been trying to read along.
But so many people are wonderful again that you've all come to join us at such short notice. It's such a privilege to just sort of chat with you all and read the comments. I mean, I love it. I think people are so engaged. And I love seeing the same people again and again. And I just want to say hello to everyone.
Karina's there. Karina Cohn, hi.
We've got Karina Cohn. We've got Karen Davies. You know, we've got just tons of wonderful people who.
So many.
Yeah, proud to, as always, proud to be on your side. What a great day. Hopefully the end is near. Well done. Keep it up, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
This is good.